Welcome to the Crafty View. I'm Diane Williams, the host for the show, and the Crafty View is presented to you by the Craftsmen's Guild of Mississippi, which is located at 950 Rice Road in Ridgeland, Mississippi, along the Natchez Trace. And so I'm excited about the guests that we have for the show today. I've been knowing him longer than he can even remember because he used to do my son's birthday party, but we're going to talk about his 9 lives in just a moment. Welcome to the show, Alan Kolodny.
Thank you, Diane. It's glad to be here. I guess I should introduce myself, start with. I'm not, if you can't tell by the accent, I am not a Mississippian. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I ended up down here because I ended up coming here to seminary. And while I was in seminary, I got to meet my wonderful wife and just ended up staying here. Have a lot of convoluted career before I got to the Craftsmen's Guild. I actually am a pastor. I pastor a small little church in Natchez, Mississippi, which is a great blessing. We drive about 2 hours every Sunday to get there, but it's worth every moment of it. Actually, I don't have any trouble with the driving. My wife, Kathy, does the driving. I do the sleeping usually. She would like me to do the driving, but I told her, you do the preaching, I'll do the driving. And so she drives.
That is great. And what's the name of the church?
New Beginnings Community Church.
Okay.
And I have to say, I'm one of the few pastors I know that are just so blessed that I look forward to seeing every single person there. It's like going to see family. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You're probably one of the only pastors that we'll ever meet anywhere that tats.
Yes. Well, I have a long story getting to that. As you were saying, I used to do birthday parties at Joyful the Clown. I did that for a lot of years while I was filling in different churches until I had my own church. But also, I've always loved to do crafts. When I was a kid, my grandmother crocheted. She tried teaching my mom, couldn't do it. No gift for it. So she figured she had to teach somebody, so I learned. And I love doing it. So I end up, when I was in college, I actually paid for part of my college by making crocheted angels and snowflakes and other things, especially around Christmas time, and selling them. But over the years, my health, I've just developed a very rare liver disease and other complications. So I'm basically stuck in a chair. I mean, I can get around a little bit with a walker, but most of the time I'm in a wheelchair or just sitting down. So I've got to do something with my hands. I can't just sit and watch TV or do anything without doing something. So I went through a period where I made gingerbread houses one year for Christmas to make some extra money. Swore I would never do that again. I made about 30 of them. Everybody wanted them the last minute. I started having dreams about they were walking through the gingerbread houses of the rich and famous. That's why I won't do it again. I've done candy making, I've done basket making, I've done anything you could think of. But it wasn't until a number of years ago, a friend of mine came to me, she said, Alan, you can do anything. I want to learn how to tap, but I can't figure it out. So I said, sure, let me get a book and see what I could do. Well, I taught myself to tat. And if you don't know what tatting is a very old way of making lace. It is one of the considered true lace, unlike crochet or other things, because it goes back to knotting, and that's where lace comes from. Centuries ago, sailors would make fancy knotted things to bring home to their spouses. They would bring it home to their wives and girlfriends, because they had time while they were on the ship. Well, the wives, not to be outdone, decided, well, they can do it with rope. Why can't I do it with cord or thread? And then lace was born. And tatting goes back to that, because tatting is basically hundreds of tiny little knots. And that's all it is. If you can make a knot, that's the basic for tatting. And I had a friend who said, teach me. Well, I figured out how to do it. I taught her how to do it. After that, I ended up getting phone calls later saying, could you make this for me? And could you make that for me? It turns out she has a doll house her dad made her when she was a little girl that she's added to over the years. Now it looks like a real house with electricity and everything. But it now has tiny little tatted doilies on the furniture and a little tiny tatted runner on the buffet. But that's how I got started in it. And I discovered I really liked it. I love anything that's old and antique, you know, and reach a dying art and be able to bring it back again meant a lot to me. And I ended up in the Craftsmen's Guild. I was encouraged to join.
How
And I did my
long
first,
ago?
that was about, what, 12 years ago? Something about 12, 13 years ago. Because I'm now
A fellow.
exhibiting fellow. So, you know, I joined the Craftsmen. In my first chimney veil, there was this dear lady, her name Louise, who did jewelry, wire work. And she knew tatting. Matter of fact, she collected shuttles that used to do the lace. And she came up to me and said, Alan, you know, people make crochet with wire. They do other types of things with wire. Nobody tats with wire. Here's a piece of wire. And I expect you to figure it out and show me by next year what you've done. So,
Alan, I think I remember when you started to do the wire because you were looking at the type of wire you needed to get.
exactly. Well, let me show you some samples. First of all, let me show you the regular tatting, and I'll show you the progression of what I've gone through. Tatting, most people are familiar with snowflakes. You see that okay?
Yes.
Snowflakes, or maybe bookmarks. But I do a lot more than that. I've taken it to the point where I'm doing Christmas ornaments on glass. If you can see, I don't know if you can see behind me, there is a piece on the wall here. That piece took over 380 hours to do. And it's also hand dyed. Well, it wasn't meant to be hand dyed. It had to be hand dyed. I used 2 different colors of white and I couldn't get into the same white. So it's like, okay, we're going with turquoise. Came out beautiful. But I also, you know, tatting, I like doing large pieces. This is going to be a very large cross when it's done. This is something I'm working on right now. And I just start with very basic stuff. All I have is thread, needle. This is all it takes. And this is the hard stuff, the fancy stuff. A needle threader and a little pair of scissors. That's all it takes. That's all the basics I start with. And I end it with something huge like I have behind me.
Can we see the needle again?
Yes. It's dull end, but it's got all be exactly the same size. A lot of needles are sharp, thinner, and they get bigger. This has got to be exactly the same size all the way through. And it can also be done with shuttles. I prefer to use needles just because it's easier for me. Having been a crocheter, it's always easier to use something that copies that same similar motion. But when she said that, I had to figure out how to do it in wire. I went on the internet. I looked and I looked. Nobody does it. Even now, what, 10 years later, I think it is, I've had people that try to do it, but they don't really get it to work. I've had people email me from all over the world, ask me, how do you do it without hurting your hands? Well, I keep telling them, I've made a promise to my wife that until I write a book, I can't tell them. Now, I don't know when the book's going to happen, but I promised I wouldn't do it. But the things I make with wire turned into pieces of jewelry using extremely fine sterling silver wire. I ended up being able to make this kind of lace.
Let's see if you can hold that closer to the screen. I wanted to see if we could get the detail on that.
How's that? Closer?
Maybe you need to hold it.
Kathy, keep out of it. You got it? And so I love doing that. And, I make bracelets, earrings, all types of stuff out of it. But, I have a very high creativity need. I can't just stop there. I've got to keep myself under control that I don't get too carried away. So once I started working with wire, I thought, what else can I do with it? Well, it just started going on. And I'll give you some ideas to show you some of the things I like to do. One of my fun things I love to do is something called Viking knit. And it's made out of wire, but it's flexible. And what it is, it goes back, there's a fancy Viking name to it, Nailbrinder or something. I can't ever say it right, but I don't speak Viking. So, but it's made by, they used to wear it around their necks like a piece of jewelry. And they had a long piece. And if they needed to buy something, what they do is just snip a piece off and pay for it with the metal, because it's a special kind of antique braid that when you cut it, it doesn't unravel. So I love making things like this that go way, way back and keeping it alive again. And of course, I've done bracelets with it too. Well, I also do other types of wire weaving. This is one of my favorite pieces. I had a lady on the internet teach me how to make this from Indonesia. It was her design. A tree of life set in the woven wire with a rainbow moonstone set in it. And I love it because it's just so unique.
So you're doing not only wire tatting, crochet, you're using precious stones as well.
Yes, I mean, this is I'll show you this piece. This is a pendant, and it's made with a Madeira citrine. Look, is that better? A Madeira citrine. I mean, it's just a beautiful stone. I happened to get a really great deal on it, which I was amazed, and had to set it right away. Couldn't wait.
Let's talk about your website or your Etsy store where people can go and take a really good look at some of your work. They can see the fine detail.
Well, I have an Etsy store. I have a website, but I have to say I'm one of those artists that love doing the art part, hate doing the business end. It's just, I know it's common. I'm not the only one. So my website really doesn't have anything. But my Etsy store, I try to keep a few things up to date. It's got a lot of wire tatting in it. It also has a lot of bracelets, because it's another thing I sell a lot of. I love taking antique pieces, especially like cameos. I just adore cameos. People don't realize the workmanship that goes and craftsmanship goes into making them, because they're actually carved out of a real shell by hand, the old ones.
And
I like making them. What?
Turn it to the side so we can also see the detail on the side of it. And speak again.
Okay. I love them because they're so unique. And nowadays, people don't wear brooches or pins anymore. I mean, occasionally, but majority of them don't. So they end up sitting in drawers, or they end up being taken and sold for the gold in the setting. And the real craftsmanship is in the cameo itself. So I reset them into bracelets. I did this one for my wife as one of our anniversaries, and set it in a pendant for her to wear. And it's a little one with a diamond. That's why I made it special.
Beautiful.
What?
Beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Well, thank you. And I love taking old brooches, the antique ones. I mean, back then they made things to last. Not like nowadays that things are made, you use it for a year or two, you get a new one. And I love old brooches like this that people bring me, or I have, and I set them in bracelets. Give you an idea of another one you could see. And I mean, I've had people bring me ones, all kinds of ones, some that weren't even silver or gold, but just had a lot of memories for them. I had one lady, and I think this is one of my favorite. She worked for Delta Airlines and retired from there. Well, after a certain number of years, they give you a little pin. Well, after a certain number of years, that pin becomes gold. And then after a number of years, they started adding gemstones to it. Well, while she was working, she had somebody to wear all of them. Well, once she retired, what do you do with them? So she came to me and I set them into bracelets for her that she could stack. And she was able to show off these beautiful 14-karat gold with little diamonds and emeralds in them, you know, and wear them all the time.
Fabulous.
I just really enjoy doing creative. I mean, I even have to admit, sometimes I get a little unique. Like, I don't know if you saw this, Diane, when I had this at the show last time. I got the idea from someone to do a little guitar. Up, okay. Sorry, I gotta remember to put up. A little guitar, you know, it's a gemstone, crazy lace, and then I did all the setting and all the rest of the guitar. I even made a little stand for it. So it can sit down on display, or it could be worn as a pendant if you wanted to. You have a choice.
Fabulous.
And or a butterfly. You know, definitely not something a lot of people or anybody else I know are doing right now. You know, my mind gets going, I've got to try it. Now, I don't say it always works, but I got to try it at least.
I want to know, the butterfly is fabulous. How does the metal, how do you crochet the metal around the stone?
It's not crocheted. Again, it's wire weaving. And what I have to do is actually take the stone and I get the shape, and it's got to be in there snug. And then I do a little bit of weaving on the back to hold it in place, and I set it in there. And then I bring this part over the top so it won't go anywhere. I mean, it's sturdy. It's not going anywhere at all. You know, that's the more and more I get to practice, do more, the more I'm learning how to set it without covering much of the stone. When I first started, I'd cover a lot of the stone trying to make it secure. Now I know how to just right how to do it so it stays without coming out. And as far as other things I like to do, this is one of the things I wanted to mention. I like doing family bracelets with the birthstones and setting them. Matter of fact, Kathy's mom, I should say our mom, I call her my mom too, is Kathy's mom. She passed away about 3 years ago, but she used to call me her son. After she used to sometimes call me her most considerate child, but I try not to rub that in too much. But I don't know if you can see a good picture of this. Kathy loves to wear it now that she's passed, but it's got 3 main stones for all the her kids, and then smaller ones for all the grandkids on it. It just meant a lot to her, and Kathy loves to wear it in memory of her.
What about that bracelet you have on your arm? Did you make that one?
I wish I could take credit for this, but this is a very special one I wear all the time. When Kath and I got engaged, we went on our first date in October of that year, October 29th. We went on our first date, which is a very strange day because early in that day, I did her nephew's birthday party as Joyful the Clown. So she's actually sitting there through the whole thing thinking, I've got a date with that clown tonight. So we went on our first date, October 29th.
What year?
And then what?
What year?
Oh, it was
1990.
1990. And then December, let me get the right date here, December 17th, I asked her to marry me. And we were married that May. And we just celebrated 30 years. And let me tell you, she's my angel. I couldn't do what I do with the crafts. I couldn't do the pastoring. I mean, she's my transportation. She's my extra pair of hands.
You
She's
two
the
are
one I put
one.
life for.
You are one. You're
Yes.
one.
Actually, we used to laugh and call ourselves Team Kolodny. So one year, as a surprise, I had T-shirts made that said Team Kolodny on it. I mean, really, the only reason I'm still here, 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with this rare liver disease, and they gave me 2 months to live. And I promised Kathy I wouldn't go unless I could take her with me. And we can go together. So 15 years later, I'm still here. I take 57 pills at 57, 59, something like that. 59 pills a day. It varies sometimes. But by God's grace, I'm still here. And I'm still able to do that, do this, and I'm able to pastor the church. I'm still able to make jewelry and other things that make people happy. We have a rule, Kathy and I love to give things away. Well, I can't just give everything away, but we have a condition that as long as I keep making multiples of the same thing, because when you're an artist, you just want to make one and that's it. It's not so much fun making the same thing the second time, but I have to be able to do that to sell them. So as long as I keep doing that, she gives me, as long as I don't get carried away, when God puts it on my heart, I'm able to give away a piece to somebody I care about or somebody I feel like needs it. So, but she does make sure I don't get carried away with it because I give everything away.
That's beautiful. Is she camera shy?
She's not ready for cameras. She's not, wasn't planning on being in the shot,
Okay.
but you'll always see her with me. She's the tall, 6 foot tall blonde with a big smile on her face and keeping an eye on me. So you can't really miss her.
Yes, yes. And so when
she wanted me to show you this because this is a picture of us together.
There you are. Wait, go ahead, say something.
Say something, Kathy.
Hi, y'all.
She's from the South.
Yeah,
I have to admit, though, I say that too nowadays. I've been in here so long, I don't know how to say hello without saying how y'all doing.
Right.
It doesn't come out any other way.
I want to talk to you about a couple of things that are really important. Number one, about tatting. You know, how many tatters do we know in the state of Mississippi? Not a lot.
Not a lot. There's some small groups of people that do it, but not many, and not many that stick with it. I know there's different places where they will teach someone, but they don't stick with it because it's hard. It's very time intensive. Like I said, that big piece behind me on the wall, 380 hours it took to make. But it was beautiful when it was done. People always ask me, how long does it take to make this? And usually I tell them I don't know. And the main reason is because I don't want to know. If I knew, I probably wouldn't keep doing it.
Right.
Kathy tells about how I had a bookmark, beautiful flower bookmark when I first started out. And we decided to count how many knots went into it. It was 900 plus knots to make this one bookmark. And ever since I counted how many knots, I've never made it again. It just, I can't, the idea of doing 900 knots just sounds impossible.
It really does. It really does. That's incredible. Now, one of the things, you know, I used to work at the Arts Commission, and I remember when your application came in for a fellowship, and one of the things I realized the importance of was good photography, because your work is so finely detailed that you could hardly see it to judge it, but yet and still, you won 2 artist fellowships. Is that correct?
Yes, they have been amazing. Didn't think it would happen. I've won 2 different fellowships from them, which is just for being the best. I would say, is that true? The best in your field, to encourage the work. And not only that, a mini grant, I get one almost every year, so I can afford to buy the materials. You know, the little church I serve just pays enough to help pay for Kathy's health insurance. So every little bit counts. And if it wasn't without the Arts Commission, I don't think I could keep doing what I'm doing. Not only that, I was so honored they asked me to be part of, they did a pop-up show at the Mississippi Museum of Art year before COVID, about 2 years ago. And I got to be there, and it was just so amazing to see my stuff in a museum, you know, and people were asking questions, and I was able to answer. We did back and forth with it, and to say, that's mine, it's hanging here. It was just amazing feeling.
That is phenomenal.
And
And
the Craftsmen's Guild has been wonderful too. I mean, they're so encouraging and helpful. It's able to touch base with other people because, like I said, the business side of it is something I'm not good at, but I have people I can call and ask, what do I do? Does this make sense? Or for instance, the dear lady that I still talk to, like a mentor that still gives me advice and encouragement about the work I'm doing right now, whether it's the tatting or the wire work or whatever.
you, mhm,
I'm
you,
even moving into a new way of, I'm always trying something new. So now I'm also doing piercing, which I don't know if you know what that is, but it's better, basically when you take metal and you use a saw. This is basically what a jeweler's saw looks like, a little fancier one, but it's a good one. And you have to see to believe it. Okay, it's so small I may have lost it. Well, the blades for it make this needle look thick. It's so fine. And what you do is you get in the metal and you drill a little hole, run the blade through it and cut out each little section by section. So like this is a bracelet I made. And this is still new, but I'm getting better. And some earrings, you see. And I'm even working on some Christmas ornaments and other things. I haven't started silver yet. I want to get good before I start the expensive material, but I'm getting there. You want me to show?
Well, I didn't know if it was close at hand.
It's close at hand, but whether you can find it or I can find it, it's different.
You want to show this when
Yeah.
you started?
I'll show you. This is something I'm working on right now. It's an angel. You can see from the back, you see how it's pierced out. And all those little holes is where I have to put a needle through, not needle, saw blade through and cut it out.
if you hold it down on near your shirt.
Is that better? Oh, Kathy wants me to show you a finished angel. So this one is so involved. When it's done, I'm not sure it's going anywhere except our house.
Incredible.
Thank you. Like I said, when you're sitting in a chair all the time and you got high creativity needs, unfortunately, I do have the TV on a lot in the background. I'm not sure I'm watching it, it's just for noise, but I've got to be making things.
I think that's fabulous. You found your niche, and these are the things that keep us vital and encourage us. I find that when we're doing crafts, it's a great time for meditation. It's a great time for prayer. It's a great time to think through some things, problem solving, all of those kinds of things. And it's satisfaction.
Well, you know what I love is that if I'm having a hard day, and I know everybody, especially with COVID this past year, everybody's had hard days. But when I finish something I've made, and I look down and I say, wow, I made that. Look how beautiful that is. It pulls me out of the dumps. You know, it may not be perfect, but it's still beautiful, and I made it. You know, I mean, I think that's one of the best things about making things and creating, is that you look back at it and say, that's a work of art and it came from my hands. Well, I mean, look at your stuff. You know, I mean, I'm sure you feel exactly the same way.
And that's why we're members of the Craftsmen's Guild, because that's the standard that they set
Right.
for us. And the bar goes higher and higher, and we're fearless. And members of the guild, you know, when we first come into the guild, we're like, oh, can I get in? Will I pass the standards committee? But once we get in and we realize that the rigor we put into the work is worth it, and that's what makes us great craftsmen and women, and that over the course of time, by the time you become a fellow, you're a master artist, which means that your work, you've got some experience in understanding the elements of your work.
Well, the thing is, people don't realize that once you join the guild, it's not just joining the guild. Every 3 years, you have to be checked in, make sure you're doing good enough work. They, check it again to make sure you're doing the right kind of quality and that you're improving. It's not till you've been there 10 years and you become a fellow and they don't have to constantly keep checking up on you. But they do though. Every time you do something like Chimneyville or take something to the craft center, you know, they look at it and say, is this the quality? They won't let you put it out if it isn't. You know, you can't put out secondhand stuff. Not that you would want to, but they make sure we keep the quality going.
And hobbyists, people that are novice or hobbyists, sometimes when you're talking to them, they don't understand the difference in fine art craft and hobbies. I always said we don't use glue. we don't use glue in the sense that everything's going to be glued together. And that's why I talked to you about how the wire came around the fine stone, you know, that you've worked years to perfect how that would curve around that stone. It is not glued to that stone.
No, it's holding it in place.
Yes, very
Now,
important.
I have to admit, there have been times I've added a little glue just to be on the safe side.
Right.
I had one customer that I made a bracelet for, and she wore it nonstop. She wore it while washing dishes, doing gardening, doing everything. And it was constantly having to be repaired because she was really hard on it. So finally it's like, okay, we're going to add it down to the jeweler's glue just to be on the safe side this time. And haven't had a problem since.
And that's okay. That's okay. But it's not
Yeah.
a mantra. It's not.
No, it's not the
easy
norm.
out. No. And work needs to be stabilized to its form and so forth and so on.
Well, for instance, in jewelry, it has to be, you know, is it smooth? Are there ends showing, like in tatting? You know, there's a lot of different areas that people don't think of. You'd be amazed how many people come by my booth and say, oh, I could do that. And
Oh, no.
yeah, you know, I'm sure you hear that too. And it's just like, you want to say something, but it's like, nope. They have no idea what they're talking about.
So now, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what is your preference? Should they contact the guild? Do you want to share your phone number, website, Etsy store?
They can get a hold of me through the guild. You know, I'd rather not give out my phone number just because I don't mind the guild giving it out. But you know how it is nowadays. If I get one more phone call for extended warranty on my car, I'm going to scream. So, you know, they can get me through the guild. I have my Etsy store. They can contact me through there. And, you know, I have a Facebook page. You can find me through there too.
Yeah, because that lists your Etsy store. But I'm gonna give them the name of your Etsy store. It's joyfultatter.etsy.com. That's JOYFUL. Tatter is TATTER dot.
One word.
Oh, Joyful Tatter is one word.
Mhm.
.ETSY.com.
Well, I used to be Joyful the Clown, so then we just progressed to being Joyful Tatter.
And my son loved those clown shows. When you came to our house, everything was lit up and the fun began. Thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you for being our guest on the show. And I want you to take care.